What is up? We are back breaking down some Dynasty fantasy football teams. We are going through 7 team reviews over on our site. And a lot of these, I believe, were free vouchers for those of you guys that were down below in the comments, shouting out your Flock usernames. We sent out some free vouchers after the first and second episode that we did. And we are getting to some of those teams in today's video. So if you guys want to be part of these videos in the future, you know what to do. Shout it out down below in the comments. Any paid reviews, obviously, we'll skip the line. And Danny, let's not waste any time. This is where we break down your Dynasty teams, your decisions that you have to make here. RSG says, thank you for the voucher. Appreciate the content. And he said he found the channel after joining a Dynasty League startup. Dynasty ranking and FSE models really helped out as a new player. So Barkley and Co., he's right smack dab in the middle of the pack now. And this is the team he's working with. So in a 12-team, start 9, 2 quarterback, half PPR, 0.75 tight end premium, it looks like his team is a little bit middle of the road in terms of overall value because he doesn't have his 2025 picks, but it is very clearly, I think, a contender in terms of the way he's built this thing out.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that your team is more tailored around production value rather than trade value, which is fine. I mean, you still have 2 very, very high pillar pieces with a guy like CeeDee Lamb. Actually, I mean, even 3 there, actually. I don't know why Nico's in yellow, but regardless. With CeeDee Lamb, with Monroe, with Nico, I mean, you have a 3-sack at wide receiver that will contend with any other core in the league, evidenced by the number 2 ranking. And although you do have maybe not potentially a ton of value on the rest of the roster, Saquon Barkley, we can chew in as a top 2 to 3 running back, if not the RB1 overall in fantasy this upcoming year. Kyren Williams, if they don't add any significant competition to the backfield, you could pretty much peg in for a, mid-end, low-end type of RB1 type of appeal. And then, Aaron Jones gets that extension. Tony Pollard, even though we're both high on the talent of Tajay Spears, probably should still be a relative 50-50 in that backfield. And the other thing with the quarterback position too, I would say, is you don't necessarily have somebody that's going to project to accrue a ton of value, be a top 2-round startup pick. But you have a couple guys that will fight for low-end quarterback 1 status this upcoming year with Mayfield and with Goff.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest weakness appears to be that your quarterback 3 is Russell Wilson right now. Your quarterback 1 is Baker Mayfield. So you could use a little bit more value at that position. Again, if we threw this into a simulator that ran it through Underdog ADP going into the 2025 season, you're going to see Saquon Barkley going high in drafts. You're going to see Kyren Williams going high in drafts, CeeDee Lamb, St. Brown, Collins, McLaurin, Kelsey. All these guys are going to be still going pretty high in drafts. So very clear that you're in a competitive window. He did list in the chat.
I do have one caveat after.
Go ahead.
Just after you go. I just have one caveat for after.
Okay, yeah. So after the startup draft, he said he was able to make a few trades to get Nico Collins and Saquon Barkley. He said, shout out Danny. It wasn't hype. Nico is the real deal. It ended up paying off because he won the league. So he did win the championship last year. So that pick that he ended up giving away that he doesn't have any of his 2025 picks was, in fact, the 112. And he said he wanted to get some advice moving forward. He said, I think I can run this back, but he understands that he has some aging veterans on the squad. This league really does value youth and draft picks, and multiple teams did kind of 1-year punts out of the startup. So it sounds like his best course of action, the way he's detailing it here, is probably to just run this back, because he's not going to be able to dismantle, all these like competitive assets and just get a boatload of picks. Like a lot of casual leagues out there, you could sell Saquon Barkley for like 2, maybe even 3 first-round picks right now because of what they think of draft picks versus the production value of Saquon.
And that was what I was going to mention as my caveat, is that I would run it back. But this would be a team that would be wary of midseason. If it started off 3-5 and maybe some of your vet players are banged up, or you notice they're on a trend of potentially losing value, you could potentially retool around those wide receivers. But if you're mentioning that the entire league is pretty wary about the value of draft capital and aren't willing to overpay for, like, in some leagues, it's hard to even get like a first-round pick for Kyren Williams, or for Saquon Barkley, it's hard to get 2 first-round picks, or for Baker or Goff, it's hard to get a singular first-round pick. Like, some leagues are very, very stingy on draft capital. So I understand if yours is like that, your best suit of action is literally just running it back and taking the production value, because like we said, if they can't pay the overall market value for a player, why would you take a loss when you can just take the production, especially knowing that your wide receivers are in the position that they're in? So I do agree. I think you have to run it back. Just be wary that if you do see some negative signs, maybe hit the exit button week 7, week 8, week 9 if your team's telling you that. But I'm not really concerned that your team's going to fall off a cliff because your wide receivers are so strong. It's just more so the valuation perspective from the running backs and the quarterbacks.
Yeah, and your onesies are kind of not the best either. Like, it's not like you're going to be really difference making with your tight end position, with your quarterback positions, and so on. So I I wouldn't advise you to, like, the opposite of obviously waiting and seeing what happens for the first couple weeks of the year would be selling your first round pick for more competitive assets. And I would say, again, week 5, week 6, week 7, if your team is absolutely a machine, an absolute hammer, then yeah, you could sell your 26-1, go out and buy like a better tight end or a better quarterback 3 or whatever the case is. But I wouldn't kind of encourage that beforehand. I think you're probably in a wait and see approach with this team.
Yeah, exactly. The best approach on this team is just being water, being fluid, not something that I want to rush into either way, regardless of whether I'm trading my first round pick or whether I'm tethering down some of those running backs and quarterbacks off of this team. So overall, I mean, I know it's pretty boring and I know it's pretty indicative of the fact that you're number 6 in value, but it's like you're number 6 in value because your team can go either way. Like I do see production value on this team to be able to run it back, get that back-to-back crown. But on the other side, I also see the possible complications that could face you on the way and potential paths to getting out of it if you need to.
Yeah, and part of what you told us is why we're saying to probably run it back.
Yeah.
Because if you said this league doesn't give a shit about picks, we would have said, hey, maybe you want a championship, maybe try and, retool this thing and re-compete back again in 2027, 2028 after you make some moves. But if you're not going to get shit for these players, then it's not really going to be worth your time to sell for 80 cents on the dollar. You might as well try and win again and then sell for 70 cents on the dollar next year if that happens. Because, Kelsey, you're not going to get anything in a league for Kelsey where people value picks. Like, trust me, me and Danny play in leagues like this. Nobody's giving you anything for Travis Kelce.
You're not even getting a 2. Like you're hoping you can get an early 3. And even that, somebody might say, hey, I want Kelsey. I'm giving you my 308 plus my 408. Take it.
Yeah, like that's what you're going to get offered. So you might as well just try and compete again and try and win again. And you already won a championship. So you're kind of like the actual correct term of using house money here is what you're doing because you already won the championship. But yeah, for your first Dynasty League to win your championship and be ready to compete again, like, again, you kind of took a bit more of a redraft approach, which we probably wouldn't have advised, but you're in what sounds like a pretty sharp league where people were going kind of 1-year punts out of the startup. So I think it was probably a correct evaluation of your league market.
Yeah, and you were sharp too. You realize, hey, if I'm going to go all in out of the startup, I'm going to make sure at the very minimum I keep all of my 2026 picks. The 2025 picks, you're like, okay, I'll use those on my way. And very well, that ended up working out because the 112, the 212, the 312, the 412, I'm sure you didn't trade at 112, 212, 312, 412 valuation. You probably traded it more so at mid to late first, mid to late second, mid to late third type of valuation. So the fact that you already kind of made a profit on that, and then now you're so fluid in the direction that you can go based off what your league's telling you, I'm perfectly fine with the spot.
Yeah, it's nice when you sell your pick and it ends up actually being the 112, 212, 312, and 412 because 95% of the time it does not end up being that because people assume it's that. And sometimes it's a high pick.
Hey, I mean, the inverse almost ended up happening. Now, fortunately for me, from J Metal, shout out J Metal if you're watching this, the player that I ended up getting made it worthwhile regardless of where the pick ended up. But I kind of basically last year at our rookie draft, traded my first round pick with the assumption, okay, I won last year. My team's looking really strong. My team was dominant all year. I'm like, yeah, it should be like finals bound 111, 112 area. Obviously, it ends up being, I think, the 110 or 109. So not quite there, but it ended up all working out at the end because the player I dealt for was Brian Thomas Jr. So I feel good.
There you go. There you go. How was that supposed to be bad on you? You traded up a pick that ended up being late for Brian Thomas Jr.?
No, but like it was almost like the inverse where it's like you trade the mid to late one, almost expecting it was like the 108, 109, 110. I was kind of like almost like too cocky where it's like, there's no way I'm not going back to back type shit,
Yeah. And Sir King Jared is the next team that we're going to break down here. This looks like an FSC type of team here because he's got a massive lead on the rest of his league mates. And I also see AJ in here. I see Slat Squatch in here. I see Skull Canada in here. I see Brown and Brown in here. This is an FSC league through and through by the looks of it. He said this team is a team full of picks, a truly fun one, but I am currently a bit overwhelmed with the options. Would love any direction for targets in a draft and trade. So it's funny because you think about it like a NFL roster, like the New England Patriots, who need every single position, and it's more fun to kind of rebuild a team like that than a team like maybe Jared's roster, where you're starting to think about, okay, I got to actually like spend these strategically because I don't just need everything anymore. I kind of need specific things.
The only issue right now is when we evaluate this league, I'm gonna tell you right now, AJ, he's watching this video. Josh Latz, he's watching this video. They are all watching this video right now. So we're gonna break it down and we're like, oh, maybe look at this player from this team. And it's like AJ's gonna be in the comments. Yeah, you ain't getting fucking Drake London from me.
Yeah, I mean, AJ has Drake London and Bijan in every single league that he's in because he's a Falcons fan. But I mean, Jared's team here, you got Lamar, you got Bryce, you got JJ, good quarterback core that you've built out. My like really cheap running back, Charbonnet, Brian Robinson, that's totally fine. You can maybe see what those guys are worth on the open market. Given the league dynamic, I can't imagine you're going to get too much for them. Nico Collins, Xavier Worthy as your top receivers. And then you kind of, I mean, it seems like you kind of missed on a couple guys here with Polk and, whatnot.
Watson.
But Tillman, Coker, those guys are interesting. And the absolute war chest that you have of picks, 101, 102.
Oh, I thought you were going to say of tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Smith, Michael Mayer, Brenton Strange, who stinks.
Boys.
Anyways, the picks that you have, I can see why you're a little bit overwhelmed here because you're like, okay, best player available is the way to go, but also, do I maybe want to like strategically think? Because at 101, you're taking Genty. At 102, because you also have 106, 107, 110, 111, and all those other picks, you kind of want to plan strategically a little bit. You're like, okay, do I go Hampton at 102 if he goes in the first round? Because I don't really love the 106, 107, 110 options at running back a little bit as much. And I expect, like Buka and Burden, some of those guys to drop to you. Or do you do the inverse? And you're like, oh, Hunter's playing wide receiver, or Ted McMillan's a guy that I'm going with at 102 because I can expect to get Judkins and Henderson and whoever else at 106 to 107. So you're kind of just going to need to feel out the board. It's probably a good assumption that whatever we kind of probably think in terms of what the rankings in the first round should look like is probably going to be somewhat similar to your league.
Yeah,
given
I wonder why.
A bunch of our followers in it. So it's definitely going to be an interesting way to play out this rookie draft. Easy answer is you're just going to take best player available whenever you can.
Yeah, and I'm sure, for Slats probably has the 103 and AJ's probably got the 104, the 105. Skull's probably the defending champ.
AJ's got no picks.
Okay. AJ's number 2
Neither
valuation.
Slats.
Wow. So does Skull have them all?
105.
I mean, dude, actually, who has them all is Jared.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Jared has all of their picks by the looks of it.
Yeah. So, looking at that, obviously everybody's going to be watching this, but you pretty much outlined it. 101, 102. If you can get a combo of Genty plus one of those 2 wide receivers, I think that's your best interest. Obviously, those late ones, if you can add 2 running backs in that range, I'd feel comfortable at the 106, the 107, the 110, 111, 201, 202. 2 of those picks pretty much have to be pegged on, in my opinion, Colson Loveland or Tyler Warren plus
Golden.
Caleb who am I missing? Golden, Johnson. Like literally, just have fun. And honest to God, once you use those first 3 picks, first 4 picks actually, because the 107's there as well. Holy fuck, your team is loaded with.
He also has 4 ones next year, which we didn't even mention.
Well, I was gonna say that's why I was also gonna say because you have 4 ones next year, because you have all those 2s, all your 1s this year. If you can take some of those later 1s or the early 2s and really consolidate on this roster, I'd be comfortable with that. Again, it is a start 9 league, full PPR, half tight end premium. So people are going to look at those picks and be like, ooh, if I can get one of Loveland or Warren and maybe you get the other, and you're able to package, like I said, 3 of those picks into one truly super stud type of asset, I'd be perfectly comfortable doing it. 110, 201, 202, how good at running back or wide receiver can you get with those picks?
Yeah, you could probably get pretty high up at least probably top 6 running back, top 10 wide receiver in that territory. I tend to just want to spend these picks because I feel like they kind of land in not all of them necessarily.
Start 9, that's why.
The honey pots that you have the best 2 picks, which is a good honey pot to have. You also have the tail end of the range where it's going to start to flush together with the 103, 104, 105. I would be less inclined to trade up for picks like that because I don't view the 106, 107 as that far off. You're going to, I have, Judkins and Igbuka and stuff ranked up at 103, 104, 105, and you're going to get them at 106, 107. So that's why I'm totally cool just kind of sitting and pat and spending a lot of these picks, especially with the 201, 202. You need a tight end. You're going to have a honey pot there. 204, 209. Again, maybe you want to sell off some of those picks or whatever, but I feel really good about the team you've built out here and the ability to come away from this rookie draft with, okay, I got 5 wide receivers now, Collins, Worthy plus 3 guys that you get in this class. Then Tillman and Coker and those guys are your 6 and 7. And I also have 3 really good running backs now because you walked away with Genty and Hampton and Judkins or something.
Can we take a look at the quarterbacks across the league too? Because I would be curious because you have risk with both Young and JJ McCarthy, if you can attach picks to one of them and maybe move up the board.
Yeah, you could go after Drake here from Herb Your Enthusiasm. He doesn't have any picks. He might be motivated. Yes. Hey, I love this class. I want to get X player that he likes. And you can go after Drake May, send off the
McCarthy or Young plus. plus one of those quarterbacks.
Plus, you also have picks next year too. Like if you want to maybe stand pat and hold some of your picks this year, you can be like, hey, I'll give you 107 plus my 26 mid projected one, and maybe you have to throw in something else for Drake May.
You have to throw in a quarterback like Young, or
you might not have to, dude. Drake May's going rate, I think, on the open market is probably a 2 first plus kind of, like, we value him more than that, but I think going market rate, he's probably worth like 2 1s.
I mean, I've never seen a league where it's
okay. Well,
like that,
McCarthy plus 110 and a 26-1 that's projected late would probably
like that. If you offer something like that, I think you get your foot into the door at the very minimum.
Do, but like I actually just really love the assets he has. That's why I'm like
I
get
consolidating
and stuff, but I like the quarterback core you have. I like where the picks are. Like
I do. Bush, it's a start 9 league. He's got 4 1s in 2026. He has to consolidate. Like you don't have roster space for all those players.
my thought process would be consolidate with your 26 picks, just because the class projects to be worse.
I don't disagree. Like if you can hold a late projected 2026 1 instead of the 110, like sure, like that's fine. Yeah. Like go throw that in. But I just personally have no issue spending and according picks together to try to consolidate on this roster.
Yeah, no, it's a great team. We don't really have to spend much more time on it.
I mean, you know what you're doing, obviously.
You know what you're doing, Jared. I think I'm in like 3 leagues with you. Yeah. Figure out your stuff. Don't trade anybody. Sam Howell. Don't trade for Sam Howell and give someone CJ Stroud like you did with me. But that's neither here nor there. We can probably move on to the next team. Sorry, I just had to get that last one in.
Ouch.
Trevor's Army, next team that we got here. He said he's been trying to get a running back and no luck.
Look at that wide receiver value.
Yeah, the wide receiver value is insane here. By the way, we haven't made any reference to this. If you guys want to use this My Teams feature, it is totally free. It doesn't require you to pay for anything. I don't even know if you need a subscription to use this, but if you make a free trial or whatever, you can still use it afterwards. And then he says thoughts on targets and any advice moving forward. So the team for Trevor's Army here, 2 quarterback, 12 team, start 10, PPR 0.75, tight end premium. Quarterbacks, Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, JJ McCarthy, Sam Darnold, really strong core there. Achane and a bunch of dudes at running back. Jefferson, Brian Thomas, Nico. You got the loaded wide receiver core, absolutely stocked at that position. And then McBride, Kraft, Ingram, like that's even a loaded position group itself. And then you don't have your 1 this year. You don't have your 1 next year. But I do think, I mean, he's identified that, I could use probably another running back or 2. Dude, with the team in the state that it's in right now, maybe you've already thought of this, but like go buy cheap veteran running back production. That would be my thought process, because you have 2s. You got 3 2s next year. You got 1 2 this year. Like you walk away from this trade kind of acquisition with Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara, like giddy up, dude. You're ready to win.
Yeah, that's an option. There's a few other options on the roster in your depth specifically that I would be comfortable moving. So first and foremost, Sam Darnold / JJ McCarthy, whichever quarterback 3 that you can get a good market value for, that you feel confident in. Obviously, I would expect more for JJ on the open market than Sam Darnold, but if the offers for JJ are maybe only 80 to 90%, but you're getting full value for Sam Darnold, go that direction, or vice versa. If somebody's willing to give you a strong offer for JJ, I'm not just saying like, oh yeah, get rid of JJ to get rid of JJ. More so like, oh, he needs a quarterback bad, he's willing to give you a strong offer. Like for example, go up to that guy. Was it No Fly Zone? He's got 1 quarterback on the roster. He is a young team, but maybe he'd be interested in getting JJ. He has all those picks. Is he willing to throw in one of those, like the 106, 108 type of picks for JJ? And maybe if it's the 108, you get a little juice on top. That's what I would be looking to do in that direction. The other direction I would go to is you have a Zay Flowers.
McCaffrey and Kamara. You could potentially go after this dude as well with one of those quarterbacks. He only has Mahomes and Mayfield. He might be interested in Darnold potentially. You could go after, you have.
Would Zay Jones get you McCaffrey on this team?
Yeah, maybe.
Or Zay Flowers, sorry.
Oh, Zay Flowers. I heard Zay Flowers. I didn't hear you say Zay Jones, but I think you could maybe swap Flowers straight up. I would be more willing to honestly just move 2s and such for Kamara and
ideally
some of these dudes here.
Ideally, but like I just think it'd be tough, especially given like the other teams in this league. Like would they do it for 2s for McCaffrey, or would they say, oh, you know what, I paid probably X amount in a startup, I would at least want a young receiver back? That'd be my only problem. Is I feel like McCaffrey, out of all people, people are understanding what he's able to do on the football field, so they don't want to get rid of them off their team, even if his market value is not nearly what it used to be when he was on that football field. So he's one of the toughest players to both trade for and trade away in Dynasty because you never feel good about the deal either side you're on.
Yeah, this guy's team strikes me as a really good target because he only has Burrow at quarterback and he has 4 really solid running backs.
And no picks.
Montgomery specifically really sticks out as a good fit for your team because, I mean, how much is Montgomery really going to cost? Like Darnold and Montgomery involved in the trade. How much is like, you could probably get him to throw more running back talent on top to get Darnold. If he gave you Montgomery and Spears for Darnold, would you accept that given his team state?
Yeah.
Like that would be an interesting trade that you could make. You could even, if you want to, you could go up a little bit higher and go after Breece Hall because I still believe he is one of the better buy lows in all of Dynasty right now because everybody's really down on him. So how much more on top of JJ McCarthy do you need to give up for Breece Hall? Like you could go up right up the top of the board to Breece Hall as well. So you have a number of different options. It sounds like he's making trades. Like he said that he has a lot of trades that he has been sending out for the running backs and no luck yet. Keep going, man. Use your quarterbacks, use your wide receivers, use your twos.
You have all the liquidity you need on your roster too. Like you said, if you have to throw 2s and 3s, like Corey said, you can go that direction. Realistically, a guy like Zay Flowers on this team in a start 10 league just isn't going to make as big of an impact. I would have said Brandon Ayuk too, but Brandon Ayuk, I don't think the market value is quite there coming off of the knee. So I'd probably rather prefer him as my depth option. But if you're getting, it says wide receiver 16 valuation, unless that's your rankings.
That is my rankings. I have Flowers ranked higher than you do, but like, yeah, regardless. if you can get top 20 valuation for Zay Flowers, I do think he's worthwhile as a trade candidate and reposition some of your assets at the running back position. And same goes for like Tillman and Coker and those guys. Like they're just throw-ins at this point for you because your wide receiver depth is so strong. So if you're offering the 211 for Alvin Kamara and the guy's like, can you give me Coker too? Like, fuck it, get it done. Just do that. And then you have a guy who can be a good productive running back for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so we can move off of Trevor's Army team. Again, very strong team, just needs some running backs there. Moving on to the next team here, we got from SoCal Loom. He said he likes his quarterbacks and Trey McBride, but not sure if he's ready to compete with his wide receivers, trying to get younger, traded away Adams, Evans, and his second for Rome Odunze. So a little bit of a steep price tag, but Odunze could turn into a long-term option for him. Wanted to get advice on what to do with the 101. He said his league values picks like crazy, but he said he doesn't think he can get significant draft capital for the one unless you can get an absolute haul for it. This is his team. Again, a little bit weaker at a lot of positions here. I mean, he's going to add Genty this running back core. Once you have Genty there, it really helps out, but the wide receivers need some help for sure.
Yeah, the wide receivers are your main point of weakness on this team, I would say. Like, it's just tough because you also need to add probably 1 or 2 running backs, like even outside of Genty, to feel really comfortable about your window. So I honestly think at this point, you're probably a little bit caught in limbo because you have young pieces, but I don't think you have quite the top end or depth talent to compete like at a top level. But I also don't think you have the draft capital that I would have wanted you to be at this point. So either way you slice it, I'm kind of trying to point out that I wish you had a little bit more value to play with on the roster right now.
Yeah, no, it's kind of difficult to look at this team and be like, yeah, you're like one player away because like
quarterbacks are there.
Hypothetically, let's say you hit on Genty and you hit on Matthew Golden slides to 201, or Jaden Higgins is there at 201 in a great landing spot or whatever. And you'd be kind of on your way sort of to competing, but like
you got to wait for Ayuk to come back too. And like
you kind of need to hit a home run on both of your first draft picks to be able to actually get there and James Conner's got to keep doing his thing. And like, you need a lot to break right for that to happen. So if I was in your position, I would probably be a little bit more proactive. Again, shop the 101. Like you never know, like somebody might be willing to give you 103, a 26-1, a 27-1 or something like that for that pick. And at that point, it makes sense to kind of trade down. But if you can't get anything more than like, you're going to get some shitty offers. Like I've tried to shop 101s.
102 plus a 210. And it's like, okay, why?
It's like, no, I'm not doing that. Nobody's going to actually do that. But you're at the same time not really in a position where you're like one player away from competing. If you had Jefferson and Brian Thomas on this team also, in addition to the rest of the wide receivers you'd have, I'd be like, yeah, take Genty, take another running back at 201, and you could probably compete this year. But you're a stud and a half away probably from actually being competitive, in addition to adding Genty to this team.
Yeah, the only caveat I will say is it says your 101 evaluation at picks, and you have all of your picks. So What I'm taking that away as is maybe the league across as a whole is close. Can you go up to the My Team's feature? Okay, so there's one guy that's specifically, and then the second guy that's kind of like lapping from the field. Outside of that, I would say from 3 to 8, it was almost the exact same bar valuation.
Yeah. Some of the team names in this league are a little bit unhinged, so just keep that in mind. But a couple really solid teams at the top. Like this guy, he is like really good assets, but he also doesn't really have any depth either. Like he just has a couple really high end assets. And then this guy is a little bit more of a complete team, but again, he's really weak at wide receiver too. So there's not a whole lot of guys that are just like totally in great shape at this point in time in the league. It's pretty much just most of the guys have a couple really good assets.
We'll go to that guy that was first. I want to see like what's really differentiating him right now. So he nailed the quarterback position.
He also has 102 in addition to those receivers and quarterbacks.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense. He basically just hit the nuts in terms of his top end valuations. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So like, yeah. Okay. When you're seeing
some of these teams in the middle are more so like there's not a whole lot of teams that look complete in this league. It looks like everybody's kind of flat at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think that was actually the point I was going to make too, where it's like, we don't feel the greatest per se about your team right now, but also it's like, we don't see a team in the league that is head and shoulders above the rest. Even the team that nailed their top end, it's like, you could convince me on a given year that, okay, maybe not quite exactly outperform his 4, but if you took your Kyler, your Caleb, your T. Higgins, and maybe Rome Odunze does take that step that we both saw from him as a prospect, you could at least see you combating or fighting with the guys top 4 in first place there.
Yeah. No, I think it's possible that if you hit on these picks and things break right for your roster, you could be there soon. But this is one of those teams where it's a kind of a wait and see team. Like if you go into the year and Genty's a smash and whoever you take at 201 is a smash, and maybe you even hit on like the next Bucky Irving or Tyrone Tracy with one of your late picks, then you're going to be in a pretty good spot. But if you're in a position where like Genty's good, but then the rest of your roster is still kind of lacking depth, then maybe you shop T. Higgins midseason because he's a little bit older and you can maybe get some great value for him.
Yeah, because the other thing too is like your third most reliable receiver coming off an ACL. Your fourth most reliable receiver, I believe Shaheed's also coming off an
ACL tear. I'm pretty sure, like a meniscus tear or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then Deontay Johnson, is he even going to play in the NFL this year? Troy Franklin, I'll let you touch on that subject.
We'll take our L's where we can take them there because Brooks too.
I'm seeing another guy
injured players on this team.
Yeah, and then like my guy Benson, it just needs to do anything. Maybe show that he's actually still breathing. Like I hope he's okay. Seriously.
Yeah, he's got the corpse. He's not really producing at any level at this point in time. I think he had like 2 targets all year.
He's got like the heavy weight of the corpse of Zach Ertz laying on him as Zach Ertz fucking gallops for 4 yards at a time.
Yeah, dude. You know what? Last time somebody was trapped behind Zach Ertz, it was the tight end 1 on his roster. So
that's a good point.
We'll see what happens there. But anyways, Big Mike, you're in pretty good shape. You just kind of need to figure out kind of your direction at this point. And I would say your direction should be kind of to wait and see what happens, because you said you sold off Evans and you sold off Adams and stuff. I think that was a proactive move to go get Rome Odunze. I think it was a tad steep. I would have maybe wanted something on top of Odunze, like a 2 or something like that. But I do think you made the right decision. You probably weren't ready to win. And you were like, hey, I got to get Adams and Evans off of my roster. And given the price tag that you were able to get for some of those guys, it might be worth shopping any other aging assets that you have now, like James Conner, before he experiences like a drop off. Maybe you can get like an early 2 for him right now if that's what your league market's dictating to you.
Yep. No, I agree. Overall, there's very, very easy pathways you can take to get this thing fully rolling.
Yep. And we got Jay Metal, who you mentioned. Hopefully you're watching. He probably will be because his team is in this video.
Yes, sir. Big shout out.
Jay Metal's team here, which is the Stardust Surfer.
Thanks for BTJ.
Yes, indeed. Needs some advice on if he should stay pat or move the picks to get some depth / running backs. Had a trade to move 106 / 107 and T-Law for Hurts, but ultimately felt like he'd be boxing himself in. So he rejected the 106 and T-Law for Mahomes. That team you really want a top 7 pick. Okay, so maybe we can keep that in mind when we go through trade possibilities for this team, that guy might be interested in some of his picks. So good, well-constructed team here. You got Lawrence, Bryce Young, Dak Prescott. I like
receivers.
People might look at that quarterback core and be like, oh, you don't have a stud, but I actually really like Trevor and Bryce to potentially take steps forward this year.
Dak's already a stud.
Dak is just kind of underrated altogether. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb,
beast.
Brandon Ayuk, again, 2 absolute studs at the top, but not a whole lot of depth at the wide receiver position. It looks like, Leggett was supposed to be that guy for you last year. He didn't really take that step. Benson, Charbonnet, and Dobbins. It looks like every running back core I've ever built out in my life. TJ Hawkinson as your main tight end there. I mean, you do have the 1.6, the 1.7, the 206, 209, 212, 306, and 311. So good news.
So your whole running back course coming from this draft.
Exactly. And not only that, but you just need depth in general, and you have a bunch of good picks to be able to fill out your depth. Like if you are able to hit on, let's say, 2/3 of your draft capital here in year one, and you're like, hey, I got Judkins and Henderson with 106 and 107. They're going to be my RB1 and 2. At 209, I hit on Cam Scattaboo or Dylan Sampson or something like that. And then at 306, I hit gold on a wide receiver like Kyle Williams, who turns into a wide receiver 3 for me this season. You're going to feel pretty good about how your team is kind of shaking out with the stud talent that you do have, the capable roster that you've built out here. You just kind of need to hit on some of these rookie picks.
Yeah, no, pretty much. I think this is one of the most enviable positions you could be in Dynasty, where it's like you have, in my opinion, 2 of the top 3 wide receivers in Dynasty, regardless of what it says on the screen. You have 3 quarterbacks in Dynasty, like Corey said. You have your safety there with Dak Prescott. You have your young upside there with Lawrence plus Young. Obviously, sure, is there a risk scenario where maybe one of Lawrence or Young doesn't hit? Yeah, but at the same time, if one of them doesn't hit, I would place the scenario almost as likely as one of them booms. So
not to mention the one that doesn't
take
hit,
that offset.
Let's say Bryce doesn't have a great year this year in Carolina. He was the first pick in the draft. He'll have another opportunity to start somewhere else, most likely after this season, if Carolina was like, okay, we're done with this guy.
Well, it's like I would place the likelihood on them booming versus not hitting at a 50%. So it's like if one didn't boom, if one busted and the other boomed, I think you would take that offset every single time.
Yeah, not to mention, let's say Lawrence booms and Bryce is just kind of so-so, and we're like, okay, he's your quarterback 3 now, but he's still a starter for Carolina.
Yeah, and I mean, like the fact that you have Dak as your ultimate quarterback 2 on your team for the next 10 years in terms of like just pure market ceiling, but knowing that from a production standpoint, he could very well just be your 1 because he's still tethered to a good situation. You still have CeeDee Lamb as that combination there with the stack. Like, yeah, we could keep glazing your team, but obviously you know what you're doing, J Metal. We've played in too many leagues with you to know otherwise.
Yeah, and you heard it here first. Dak Prescott is playing until he's 41 years old.
Yes,
Danny's saying he's going to be your quarterback too for the next 10 years.
Yes, sir.
Even though he's 31 currently. But
hey, dude, Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old, and he might even get a starting job at this point too.
Yeah, he's also Aaron Rodgers. But anyways,
he hasn't been Aaron Rodgers in like 5 years, bro.
He won the MVP like 4 years ago.
Oh, sorry. 2022 was the start of the Rodgers.
Yes, it was the start of the Rodgers decline.
4 years.
But anyways, hit on your picks. Pretty straightforward. I mean, easier said than done, but you walk away with best player available. I think my strategy, if I was in your position, is knowing that you have good honeypot picks. And what I mean by that is 106 and 107 could either be running back or wide receiver. It's not going to be one position or another. It might be Henderson or Judkins or, those guys, or it could be Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, and those guys. Like you're going to have an option potentially with each of those picks to go in either direction. And same goes for the 206, 209, 212. You could have Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal, Damian Martinez, those type of guys, or you could have Trey Harris, Alec Ioman, or those guys. So you're going to have a good opportunity to take whoever the best player available is based on their landing spot, based on their draft capital, that kind of thing. And you're going to get a nice mix of running backs and wide receivers because you don't really need tight end or quarterback in this rookie class. Maybe you throw a dart 306, you throw a dart on Harold Fannin or something, but for the most part, you're pretty set at both of those positions.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to the next team here for Honor and Harambe. I haven't heard much about Harambe these days, so we'll see what's happening over here. Said he could see the possibility for a competitive window in 2026, or would you make any win now moves? Let's see if he's being too optimistic about his team because it is ranked number 8 and it is a 10-team league. And he's saying looks more like a 2026 team, or would we make any win now moves? I would not make any win now moves.
No win now moves
because you don't have a whole lot of players in their prime currently. Your best quarterback is 22 years old, and also, you have a guy coming off an ACL tear, another guy coming off of an ACL injury.
Sorry,
you have a couple other young players. It's not ready to compete yet, for sure.
I got to point one thing, too. It's a 10-team start 9 league. Why are there like fucking 70 bench spots on this team?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Bro, I don't know. It's just pissing me off. Like there's like 30 receivers listed.
Yeah, I mean, Roman Wilson has no business being rostered in a 10-team league here.
Bro, you say Roman Wilson when I'm seeing fucking like Trey Lance
Davis
and
Allen.
Desmond Ritter and Davis Allen and fucking Gabe Davis. And there's just a lot going on. Sorry, I had to point it out.
Yeah. But I mean, I think generally this team is in good shape. Like 102 and 109 are pretty premium picks, especially considering your team's not ready to compete yet. What I would be doing,
stud power though. That's the only thing.
Yeah, stud power is what you're missing. At 102, if Hunter plays wide receiver, he's going to be your stud power factor at wide receiver. Worst case, you roll with a Hampton or Tet McMillan at 102. 109, again, you can take another swing at wide receiver. You can take another swing at running back. What I would definitely be doing with this team is trying to hit on some running backs with my mid-round picks, 207, 209, 302, 401, 402, etc. Because A, I got 22 running backs in my top 50 in this class. And B, you hit on some of these running backs, and next year, when you don't have your one, which kind of sucks, but you do have a couple twos, couple threes, couple fours, if you hit on the next Bucky Irving or something, then you're going to be in a position where it's like, okay, I have one or two really solid running backs, and my receiver core is now complete because you hit on, let's say, Travis Hunter, Tet McMillan, somebody like that, and at 109, you take a Emeka Egbuka, and now all of a sudden your wide receiver core is in really good shape.
Where did your one go, though, is where I'm curious.
Yeah, let's
and
go.
What was it dealt for?
Some people with picks. Doesn't look like this guy. That's hilarious nickname, by the way. Waddle You Doing Step Bro is hilarious. Whoever his team name that is. Real Slim Shade. No, this guy doesn't have it. Who has all the picks here? It's probably somebody up at the top.
Yeah, just go start by picks. 4 and 3 are there. Maybe the guy with 3. Beef.
We're just gonna look at every single team until we find this. Here we go. This guy has it.
Yeah. Here's what you got off of him to give him that pick, because I personally would have really wanted to hold that pick in case, because you have a really young team.
Yeah, I agree. I think having your own pick would be really helpful. At the same time, though, I do think that if you're able to draft well this year, it's not like you're going to be thinking about that 26 pick being, oh, that's a guaranteed early pick or whatever. You're going to be like, oh, that's more of like a mid pick. I'm going to be a house money team this year kind of thing. That's the best case scenario out of this.
I have a hard time convincing myself it'll be a late pick.
Of course, yeah. But if you think about it this way, if Rice and Ayuk midway to the end of this year and early in 26 are themselves, and you added Hunter and Egbuka with 102 and 109, your receiver core is ready to go. Your tight end core is already solid. Your quarterback core, again, Richardson, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, you're not winning. You're not making the playoffs with the running back core then in that spot.
No, of course not. But if I think I can convince myself, looking at this team, that reasonably things should break moderately good for you this year if you're able to hit on 3 to 4 of your rookie picks.
Well, that's the beauty. Let's look at the My Teams feature. So again, not to keep harping, but look at the teams that are maybe worse from a production standpoint. Like Dirk is like, I don't even have to look at the teams at the bottom too, and I can already tell, but we can take a look at them.
This guy's team has no direction whatsoever.
Yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. And then this guy.
This guy has no receivers whatsoever.
Oh god. Yeah. So okay. So yeah, your pick's probably going to be in the 103 to 106 range if I were to guess.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, having Downs and Judy as your 4 and 5 after you add, let's say, a Hunter to your 1, like this is a pretty close to a good wide receiver core already. Like if Hunter gets your 1 and these guys, the injured ones, kind of come back to their form by midseason towards the end of the season, and you hit on a 109 running back and you have a 209
the only issue he needs 2 or 3 starting lineup options in a starting
for sure. Again,
and that's a tough spot to be in one draft cycle.
Of course, you're probably earmarking that 10. That
I got to be realistic, right?
Yeah, because that 26-1 is probably worst case scenario 103 to 104. Best case scenario probably 107, 108.
Yeah, I mean,
like maybe you sneak into the playoffs because your team surges late because Ayuk's healthy and Rice is healthy and so on.
Again, I gotta be completely honest. I think it's going to be a tough spot because, like I said, I think you need 3 starters.
Yeah, especially when you factor in that this is a 10-team league, not a 12-team league. You're going to need some
Ayuk's not going to be available right away. Josh Downs, if he's a starter for you in a start 9 league, it's probably not a good spot. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, he was really productive last year, but do they add a Travis Hunter? Do they add, a big-time wide receiver this offseason? Don't really know, especially considering there will also be turnover record. I just think we got to pause ourselves because sometimes we're a little bit too overly optimistic. We got to be completely honest, and there is a good amount of ways to go before you're considered at least a strong playoff team, I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So I would say your initial, evaluation, which is I think my competitive window maybe starts in 2026 was probably the correct one. Assuming you can
Yes.
draft well this year, you have players on your roster that I feel decent about, like
Yeah.
Benson and Warren, and like those guys who aren't really
Yeah.
that valuable now,
Guys that
they
can
could become
accumulate
more
value too.
valuable. I definitely do think you have a couple players like that.
Because specifically for his contention window too, I didn't even account for this as well. Like Rashid Rice is probably not going to start the year healthy, or he's going to be suspended. So you only really have like one true stud wide receiver that you're comfortable with on day one, knowing that, like I said, Rice and Ayuk, we don't know the health status. Downs, if he's a week one starter, you're probably not feeling great in a start 9. Jerry Jeudy could get there. Rashid Shaheed obviously still banged up. Amari Cooper's not on a team. Quentin Johnson, he's probably going to get maybe not replaced in the draft because I still think he's going to be a starter in 3 wide receiver sets, but they could very easily add another capable outside body. I'm just pointing the risk levels here.
Yeah, I think I feel better about it a little bit because I like the pick bank that you have.
Oh, the pick's great.
Because if you're able to hit on those picks, especially in year one, I think you should be okay. Again, I would not suggest thinking that you're a player or two away from competing here. Your goal is to be as competitive as you can be while your young players get better and you're not giving a guy the 2026 102 or something like that. Like if that picks the 107, I would count that as a good season for you. That means you made the playoffs in a 10-team league, but you got bounced like round 1.
Yeah, and I think that's also why I pointed out, I'm like, oh, I would have liked to know what deal you traded your own 1 for. Because if you did have your own 1, you could have controlled that thing down as low as you could have wanted to.
Yeah, and you actually kind of have a team set up to do that with the injured receivers that you have, and some of the young, like Benson's a good rebuilding, no production type of player as well. So again, team's in decent shape. You got to draft well, of course. Maneuver the board if you can. Move up, move down. I would suggest probably moving down, collecting more picks if you need to. But you could at 109 if you're like, oh my God, there's a tier break at 107 or something, and you wanted to trade up 109 plus 209 plus 402 or something to go up and get the 107. Definitely go ahead and make moves like that if they're available to you, and probably continue on your merry way here. So moving on to the final team of the video, which is from Josh Rentfrow here. He does say, continue to love the content. Appreciate you. And he said, wondering if you would recommend trading down with the 102 and using the 112 and a second, to trade up. Likely picking Genty at 102 unless 101, unless I get a Godfather offer. Diamond Dogs is his team here, which is, it looks like, in the middle of the pack of yet another. This is a 12-team league here. So love the picks that he has built up. Roster definitely needs a little bit of work still. Wilson, Addison, Caleb, Lawrence are pretty much your only real assets, but you have guys, Benson, Coleman, McMillan, Pitts, maybe, who knows, turns into something. We're kind of giving up hope on him at this point in time, but you have good assets. That's the good point. You have the ability to add stud factors to this team because you kind of need it.
Yeah, and I mean, straight off the bat at 101 and 102, whether that is Genty plus McMillan or Genty plus Hunter, if Hunter is announced as a wide receiver / lands in a spot that we feel comfortable about giving him top end wide receiver snaps, those are your 2 studs. Because then at that point, you'd have a guy that would be in consideration for the RB1 overall in Dynasty. And call me crazy, if Hunter gets drafted as a wide receiver and he goes in the top 5, which I think at bare minimum, he's going to go 4 or 5 in the draft. Like I would almost wager a guess that the odds of him going top 3 are probably at minus 400 at this point.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. And like to his other question as well, I don't know how you feel about this. How would you feel about moving up from 112 in his position, knowing that you'd probably have to give up 201, 202, or at the very least 208? I personally, when I'm in a position like this where I need to hit on players, I don't like giving up multiple picks to move up. Personally, I like to just trust my ability to draft, especially in the range that you're in. Is 112 to 109 going to be that big of a difference to the point that you want to give up a 202 dart throw as well?
There's different contexts, right? In this situation, because all of your depth is tied to those picks, consolidating with your picks could leave you in a tough spot. Now, it is a start 9 league. So if you do see, for example, you add the 101, the 102 to this team, you add a Genty as your RB1, you add a Travis Hunter / McMillan as your wide receiver 1. Okay. At that point, your 2 starters or quarterback are going to be Williams and Lawrence. Your starting running back is going to be Genty. So you only have to fill out 1 spot there. Your wide receivers ideally would be rookie at 102 plus Wilson plus Addison. So that's 3 there. So that's 4, 6. And then at tight end, you're going to need to fix that. So, I mean, you basically got 6 or 7 of your starting lineup spots filled out after the 102. And then at that point with the 112, the 201, the 202, the 208, you're kind of just filling in the gaps there.
Yeah, like I think about if this was last year's class, and I get this class is maybe not quite as good as last year's from the 101 down to that like 208 area. But like you could have walked away from last year's class with a bunch of really good starters with the picks that you have here, where you'd at 201, 202 type of picks, you had opportunities to draft BTJ, Worthy, and Lad McConkey types at that position last year. And this year at 201, 202, you're going to be talking about fixing your tight end position potentially with Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, or adding in Caleb Johnson if he slides, maybe Scattaboo or Tootin or something gets a really good landing spot and they're pushed up to 201, 202. Maybe we get more quarterbacks in the first round and they have an option for you because you only have 2 quarterbacks right now. And also you have the chance that, you know, a Golden is there or Higgins gets a great landing spot at wide receiver or Io Manor gets a great landing spot at wide receiver and they're potentially in play for you. For me, I want darts at the dartboard. I trust my ability to draft, and in your position, you got to hit big on players. And the only way to get a top 5 receiver or whatever in Dynasty from like a 201 caliber asset is to draft Brian Thomas Jr. from last year, is to draft McConkey from last year. Like that's pretty much the only way you're going to make up significant ground on some of your league mates with some of these assets. Obviously, Genty and Hunter, you got to, or McMillan, depending on who you take, is going to be earmarked to be a high-end asset for you. But 112, 201, 202, those are good picks, man. You got to hit on those picks. I wouldn't be willing to just give up one of those picks to go up and trade up. If somebody at 107 wants 112 and 201, it's like, yeah, maybe in theory that's a better player at 107, but the 2 dart throws at 112 and 201, if you can hit on them, would be a huge, huge benefit for your team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, overall, though, if you're able to walk out with the draft, let's just say, obviously, we don't want to do this ahead of time, but to give you kind of like an ideal landscape of or structure of what to follow. I mean, 101, 102, obviously, you had 2 of those high end assets. We've already spoken their names, Genty, McMillan, Hunter, 2 of those guys. You're feeling comfortable. You're sleeping like a baby. 112, 201, 202. If you add a tight end with one of those picks, I feel like we give this advice every time. You need a tight end. Take a tight end with one of those turn picks. You don't need a tight end. Focus on the wide receiver / whatever running back falls between like a Caleb Johnson, a Trevion Henderson, a Quinshon Judkins, and Matthew Golden type fall in there. Regardless, so that 112 to 202 range, like you're almost fluid to kind of do what you want. Hell, if the 2 best players on the board at the 201 and the 202 are Loveland and Warren, take both. Who cares? Like
the players I have ranked,
take talent.
Yeah, exactly. The players I have ranked where you're picking would be a nice setup for you. You walk out of this draft with Genty and Hunter at 101 and 102. At 112, Caleb Johnson is the player I have ranked there. He would help your team at running back. At 201, I have Colston Loveland ranked there. At 202, I have Tyler Warren, but Jaden Higgins is right after him in the same tier. So you walk away with Colston Loveland, Jaden Higgins at wide receiver and tight end there. And then at 208,
I wouldn't have
Higgins there is Dylan Sampson. So, I mean, you could walk away with a player like that at that point in time. And that would really inject your team with a lot of youth. And again, by the way, I like some of the youth you have already. Like Trey Benson, I think is going to gain value at points in time. I like Keon Coleman's outlook. I like Jalen McMillan's outlook. Like there's guys that you still have on your roster that can gain value. Again, we're not going to rely on Kyle Pitts. The rule on Kyle Pitts is going to be if you have Kyle Pitts and he's your tight end 1, he needs to be your tight end 2. Or at least, you know, you need to have a guy capable of carrying you production-wise if you're a competitor. Like if you have Njoku Pitts, that's fine. Or if you have Warren and Pitts or Loveland and Pitts, that's fine. But you don't really want to be relying on Pitts.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, I've done that way too many times.
Yeah, exactly. And it can really hurt your team competitive window-wise and long-term projection-wise. So
and your perception in the flock league.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it can hurt your perception in the flock league. And we are at the end of this. I believe that was the 7th team that we were breaking down there. Appreciate you guys for participating in this series. We obviously can't do it without you guys submitting us teams. If you guys want a team submitted, the best way to get your team broken down is to actually purchase a review. You get 30% off of our reviews if you are a code FSE subscriber monthly or annual. You get a free team review if you sign up annually as a Mother Flocker tier with code FSE. So if you want to get a free team review and you want access to the site, you want our draft guide, which is coming out tomorrow as you guys are listening to this, 2nd edition of our draft guide, 65 plus player prospect breakdowns, grades, comparisons, everything you're going to need to know, and also updates to the prospect model, the FSC prospects page on the site where you can actually tinker with the prospect models, undergoing a big update this week as well. So if you want access to all that stuff, you just sign up for a subscription, promo code FSC, sign up for an annual, and you get a free team review, and you can be a part of these episodes. That is the best deal you can get out there, and you get a free buy, sell, hold report voucher as well. But if you want to shout out your Flock username down below in the comments, we'll try and submit a couple more vouchers to those of you guys who are loyal followers of ours. as well. And make sure we cannot give you a voucher if you're not a promo code FSE user. So if you use code domain or code land or whatever, unfortunately, we can't give you a free voucher, but promo code FSE is, of course, the one that we would prefer that you use.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. But with that being said, peace out. I'll talk to you soon.